Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about this step node. So what does it do? What's it good for? And where do I might use step in some of my materials, etc. So let's actually pop it open. This is from the book of shaders. You can just Google book of shaders and it's got a fantastic stuff. This is how I learned a lot of my initial shadings. And if I just look up Book of Shaders step in the glossary, it's going to give me what the step node does. That's how we kind of got to this here. So a step, in this definition, specifies the location edge of the step function x, the value where you want it to be. So if you have a gradient that goes from 0 to 1, it's going to pop it right up here. And this is kind of what the step is. So this is that step of 0.5, but if you go 0.1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can see what it's doing there. Yeah, that's basically step. Another way to visualize it, say in something like Figma, here's our step, here's our gradients, 0 to 1, and if we were to step this at 50%, so let's put this at 50 and this at 50, that basically is your step, is where these two values will then kind of equal that. So this is at 81%. And this would be at 29. So it's kind of turning a gradient and putting the two values right next to each other wherever you want to say your value is. And let's go into kind of where I use this. So this might be something that I use it for, but let's start from scratch. So usually I'm taking a texture coordinate, a UV, and if we just plug this and find the color, classic UV here, I want to multiply my UV by, well, actually, let's just not do it for now. Let's component mask this to only give us the red channels. You can kind of see what exactly kind of what we're making, what we saw in Figma. Now let's just run this through a step value of 1, and it's going to be completely white. But if I say 0.5, now it's going to have it exactly at, and let's draw the border, 0.5 here. So if we time rack this, you can see a step could be made very easy to make a progress bar. Pretty simple at that. Or oftentimes I've seen it used to make scan lines. So we could say multiply this by 20, bracket, and now we have vertical blinds, but usually scan lines are on the other channel. So let's put on the green channel and voila. Now we have some scan lines here at 0.5 and voila, we have scan lines. So that's how step can be used at the basic form, but let's actually take a look through some of the materials and where I use step. So I'll stop previewing this. This is an hourglass Inktober. I searched for step and let's just see what this first step function's doing here. What I have before the step is, let's take a look. I've got this gradient and I've got this noise pattern, and the step is basically making a nice little noise gradient pattern. So it's kind of making the absolute of that, and that's making this effect of making it look like it's grainy. Common thing of mine. Let's take a look at this path. This is another Inktober. I've got a few steps in here. This first step is, let's take a look before. This is just some noise pattern again, and I'm stepping it to 0.1, so it's only gonna read at 0.1. If I stepped it to like 0.9, it's gonna be mainly black, right? So that's kind of showing you how much of, right, that gradients am I pulling from. Do I want to be mainly white or mainly black? And a step is not going to have any feathering in between the two, so it's all going to be either the color A or color B and nothing between color A or color B. Let's take a look where else I'm using it. So I've got a bunch of these tiles that I'm making on the bottom. So my step here is now kind of masking out the tiles to be white or black at 1. So that's kind of making these tiles here, and let's see where else I'm using it. Looks like this is combining some noise with the SDFs, and now I'm just stepping it to kind of make this noise pattern and the tiles here. And the very last one, it looks like I'm again using it to kind of get that grainy absolute noise like that. So that's sort of where I do it in this one, and let's take a look at golden. So this is the Persona 4 kind of golden for fun. Let's take a look at all the steps I'm using. So the very first step here, you can see it's going to get that exact same like granular noise that I have going on. So that's going to make us the little border here. Second step I have going on, probably it's doing the exact same thing. Yep, but to the general noise. So this is going to make kind of the general noise of the TV. And this last little step here, so this is interesting. I'm taking the Y axis and I'm making a mask out of it. So that's at like 0.7%, and then I'm using that as the mask to combine the two different color bars that I have, and that makes this mask right here. So I'm using the step to make that mask in particular. And let's go into some of my older projects. Let's take a look at the VHS. And I've got quite a bit of steps going on here. So let's first take a look. Look at all these step. First step, let's take a look at what we're combining. So this is kind of making a stepped gradient, even though I've said the word step enough times. And then here I'm going to combine it to be 0.5. So I want to sample this at 0.5. This other one, I want to sample that at 0.9, so I'm kind of making this, if you can imagine, a mask that I'm going to then use, say, to say, hey, between here, that's that first triangle we saw, and this triangle we saw. That's where I want to draw these lines. What are the lines that I'm drawing? Well, that's actually, it looks like that's right here. These are all those lines that I'm creating. My value is like 0.05. This is kind of the gradient mask. It's basically the exact same thing to do scan lines, but I just have my scan lines rotated and wobbly. So that's what this step is doing, is it's making those scan lines, and then I'm combining all of this together, it looks like, to make this mask here. So one step is creating that triangle, one step is creating that triangle, and another step is creating these lines, and then I'm kind of creating this mask right here with those steps. So that should cover a lot of those steps. Let's go into, what's this step doing? This step is probably making ourselves a little border. Yeah, so this step is going to make the little border in between these two, because this value and these values are different. So therefore, I'm going to make one is a outline, one is the border, and let's take a look at what that looks like. So that's going to give us, ooh, yeah, one is, where is my lerp? What am I doing here? Yeah, so I made a little border. That's what these are, is they're making a little border. So it's not just the line, but I have a little inner border line, and so that's kind of subtracting a step that's really tiny and one that's a bit larger, and that's going to give me this border opportunity to give it kind of a little edge. So that's the step used there, and I'm just stepping my displacement texture, it looks like. So if we look at the texture, it's nice and grayscale. I'm just stepping it to make it look quite harsh. Kind of like a photocopy. And then that texture looks like it's applying across these things. So that texture is kind of masking out. And that's what gives that effect there. And one other step, it looks like I'm making another mask here. Let's draw, show border. I'm making a little mask on the edge. For some reason, and lerping it. So that's my last step on that one. Let's also take a look at, here's another one. And we'll see what I'm using step 4 in this one. Here I'm making those, it looks like those vertical blinds at 0.4. We did like 0.5. It looks like that's too much. Oh yeah, because I subtracted 0.5, so I don't have a lot of values. So 0.4 kind of gets me the right spacing for, it looks like this in between these two. Let's take a look at this step is doing another, so I have another gradient here, and then this step is masking out. It looks like I'm masking out this section, and then I combine those two masks to make my little 3 color. And this last step, it looks like that's that same odd step that I have going on the edge border over there. No idea why. No idea what I'm doing there. But anyway. Who knows? I haven't seen this in a while. Let's go to another one where I've used step. This is the ASCII map material, so taking a texture and then a ASCII map texture. Where's my ASCII map texture? Over here somewhere. It's somewhere. Yeah, here. Where I identify on the darker parts of the texture, I use these. On the lighter part, on the semi-dark parts, and then on the really bright parts, I use the bigger symbols. So I'm kind of using an ASCII map in that way. So these are bright, these are dark, so they're going to use the other dark symbols. And where am I using step on this one? Let's take a look. Step. This looks like it might be making my... Oh yeah, this is when I animate this going open or not, like masking this on or not. So if I plug that in... Ooh, nope. I think I have to plug it in somewhere else, but that will animate it going on and off. So I'm using that step to kind of animate this going off and on. I haven't looked at this material in a while, so I don't remember what it does. Let's go with this step. What is this step doing? Oh yeah, this is my stuff on top that I don't think I'm using, or stuff on the bottom. Nobody cares about you. Remove. What am I doing with this? Yep, I'm making some blinds there with an F mod. And this one looks like it's also making some vertical blinds, and these are all making some vertical blinds. And it looks like that's kind of how I'm sectioning off the texture samples to make this kind of a look. So it looks like I'm using step to kind of define what those values are. So yeah, pixelation in how many columns and rows. And I think that's all of step on this one, so great. And then let's go into the Evangelion material here. I haven't taken a look at these in years, but let's take a look at what I'm doing here. So it looks like my UVs, I'm F-modding them to kind of make this, and then I'm stepping it to create the harsh lines. And over here, it looks like I am randomly masking out, well, let's take a look at what my random's doing. So here's a bunch of random things, and now I'm gonna step and make a mask out of my random. So this is just randomly picking which ones, and I believe then I'm gonna use that mask to push these at different times so that they move at different times randomly. I believe that's what I'm doing with that step. Here's a step that's just making a straight up mask. So this is again making a horizontal mask here between It's making this gradient line, and that step is going to then turn that into a mask that I believe I'm using as my angle mask for this angle right here. Oh, where else am I using step? Looks like another ID mask. This is going to make the, yeah, which things animate on and off using a sphere mask. And that's what's going to animate these things randomly opening and closing. And let's take a look here. Looks like another random mask. Oh, and these are randomly going to add the little detail of these circles, the line getting distorted. I don't think I perfected that, but that was what that step is doing. So yeah, and that's kind of all the steps that we have going on here, and this is the last step that looks like it's making the vertical lines going that way. And I think what I was trying to perfect on this the last time I was here is making sure that these are always connected, and I couldn't get the middle, but I could get the end row. Anyway, that is kind of step in a nutshell. So for folks who are curious, very basic use that you often see is something like scan lines. Or again, if you don't have scan lines, we can turn this into a progress bar, a vertical one, or a horizontal one, depending on what UV coordinate you mask from. And it's basically just taking two values and making sure that there is no colors or gradient in between them. And it's basically stepping and clamping it exactly wherever you want. And again, this is another visualization. Say if this were a gradient's just a plotted line in the graph, step will immediately then cut it off. And that is the whole summary of step. Let me know if this was useful. Gonna try to do, hope maybe a couple more of like underutilized material nodes and how I might use them. And let me know if you'd be interested in more content like this. But have a good one.